Credit cards are engineered to trap you. Not all at once, but slowly, quietly. It's a trap that can send you back to zero after years of saving and doing everything right. This video exposes one hidden trap behind the promises of rewards, points, and convenience. A trap so effective that millions of Americans fall into it without ever realizing what's happening. And once you see it, you'll understand why getting out is so much harder than getting in. Trap 1. Familiarity over safety. That trap doesn't start with debt. It starts by making risk feel familiar. Before banks can make money from interest, they need something else first. They need you to use the card by default. Not for emergencies, not for big purchases. For groceries, gas, coffee, subscriptions, daily life. This didn't happen by accident. When credit cards expanded across the United States, they weren't sold as loans. They were sold as convenience. Then small incentives were layered in over time. Cashback, points, miles. Each feature looked harmless, even helpful, but together they served one clear purpose. They trained behavior. Every swipe gives you a small positive signal. A number goes up. Points accumulate. You feel like you gained something. Psychologically, this matters. Paying with cash feels like loss. Paying with a credit card plus rewards feels like progress. So over time, something shifts. You stop asking, "Do I need to spend this?" and start asking, "Which card should I use?" That's the goal. Because once the card becomes your default spending tool, the system doesn't need to push you into debt. All it needs is time. A medical bill, a job gap, higher rent, higher groceries, and 1 month, instead of paying the balance in full, you don't. That's not a personal failure. That's the moment the system was built for. And this is why dependence is the trap. Because the real danger isn't that something looks unsafe. It's that you learn to ignore the warning signs. Imagine driving a fully loaded pickup truck across an old wooden bridge. Not concrete, not steel. A narrow bridge made of aging timber. The planks are dark and worn. The support beams creak under weight. As you drive onto it, the bridge shifts slightly beneath you. You feel it in the steering wheel. A low vibration through the frame. The suspension dips as the wood bends. You slow down. Every sound feels louder. Every movement feels risky. You make it across. Nothing breaks. So a week later, you cross again. The bridge still sways, still creaks, still feels unstable. But this time, you're less tense. After a few more crossings, something changes. The danger doesn't disappear. Your awareness of it does. You stop slowing down. You stop gripping the wheel. Not because the bridge is stronger, but because you've become familiar with the risk. And here's the part most people miss. Each time you drive across with a heavy vehicle, the bridge gets weaker. The wood flexes more. The joints loosen. The structure absorbs stress it was never designed to carry repeatedly. But none of that is visible from the driver's seat. Credit card dependence works the same way. Each month you rely on borrowed money to support everyday life, the risk increases. But it feels safer. Your balance grows. Your fixed expenses expand. Your margin for error shrinks. Yet, emotionally, you feel more in control, not less. Because familiarity masks exposure. That's why dependence is the trap. Not because debt collapses everything immediately, but because it lets you keep going while the structure underneath you weakens. Trap 2. The minimum payment illusion. And when a shock finally hits, a medical bill, a job gap, rising rent, rising prices, you're not approaching the bridge carefully. You're already halfway across it. At that point, risk stops being theoretical. Life risk is unavoidable. And dependence always comes with a cost. So when you can no longer pay the balance in full, the system offers you a way out. But it's not an exit. It's a detour that leads deeper in. This is where minimum payment appears. On your statement, you see two numbers. One is large, the full balance. The other is small, the minimum due. The message is subtle. It doesn't say you're failing. It says you don't have to solve everything today. So you choose the minimum, and something important happens. On the surface, it looks positive. You're not in default. Your account stays open. Your card still works. The system treats you as stable. But underneath, the rules change immediately. The moment you stop paying in full, your interest-free grace period disappears. High interest begins accruing retroactively. Interest is calculated from the day you swiped, not the due date. This is where the real cost begins. In the US, Average credit card APR sits around 20 to 25%. Many cards charge 27 to 30%. Penalty rates can reach 29.99%, and that interest is calculated daily. Here's what that means in practice. If your balance is $5,000 and your APR is 24%, daily interest approximately $3.25. Monthly interest approximately $97. So when you pay the minimum, say $100, almost all of it goes to interest. The principal barely moves. You're not reducing the weight. You're just paying rent on the debt. Now return to the bridge. The structure is damaged. The surface is cracked. So instead of closing the bridge, someone repairs the road by taking wood from the support beams. The driving surface looks smoother. Cars can keep moving, but the foundation is weaker than before. Minimum payment works the same way. It fixes the present by borrowing strength from the future. You sacrifice future income to relieve pressure today. You feel functional again. But the structure holding everything up is quietly deteriorating. And the most dangerous part is this. Each month you repeat this process, the bridge looks usable, while becoming less capable of holding weight. Minimum payment doesn't prevent collapse. It postpones it by transferring stress forward in time, and the longer that delay lasts, the more expensive and fragile the system becomes. Trap 3. The debt loop. Once you've been carrying debt for a while, another system quietly tightens around you, your credit score. At first, it feels distant, abstract, just a number in the background. But credit scores don't simply record what you've done. They reshape what you're allowed to do next. As balances stay high, your utilization rises. Missed or late payments carry more weight. Your score begins to slide. And that number follows you everywhere. In the United States, a lower credit score rarely means you can't borrow. It means borrowing becomes more expensive. Higher auto loan rates, higher mortgage rates, higher insurance premiums. So now, every major financial need costs more than it used to, not because your life changed, but because your position in the system did. And this is the trap inside the trap. As your cost of borrowing rises, your ability to escape debt falls. More of your income goes to interest. Less goes to reducing principal. Less remains for recovery. So when pressure builds, you don't borrow to grow, you borrow to stabilize. But the terms make stabilization harder. Debt stays alive longer. Interest compounds faster, and your score remains under strain. This creates a closed loop. Debt increases to credit score drops, to borrowing becomes more expensive, to debt lasts longer. And this isn't rare behavior. In the US, nearly half of credit card users don't pay their balance in full each month. The average revolving balance sits around $6,000 to $7,000, and the interest on that debt often exceeds 20%. Not because people are reckless, but because this loop is easy to enter and hard to exit. At this point, the system no longer needs persuasion. It doesn't need rewards. It doesn't need incentives. Your options are limited by design. You're still paying. You're still functioning. Nothing has collapsed. But exiting the loop becomes harder every month. The bridge is still standing, but the weight it can safely carry is less than it used to be. And the longer you stay on it, the fewer exits remain. At this point, the trap is complete. Not because you made one bad decision, but because the system doesn't rely on mistakes. It relies on normal behavior. Most people don't plan to carry credit card debt. They plan to manage it, and the system is built around that assumption. Rewards train you to keep using the card. Minimum payments keep you from exiting. High interest makes time expensive. Credit scores quietly remove alternatives. Nothing forces you to stay. One path is just made easier than the others. So over time, effort shifts, from getting out to staying afloat. The system doesn't need you to fail. It needs you to cope. And as long as you're coping, debt stays alive, interest keeps growing, and the system remains stable. This isn't a personal failure. It's a structure doing exactly what it was designed to do.